So on to the topicality, right? They say we dropped the argument, but they dropped all of our answers to the topicality, right? This is the most, like, think about a real-world application, right? When the United States federal government allocates money for something, they specifically allocate it. They don't say, oh, here, University of Miami, take $10,000. No, they say, here, University of Miami, take it for research in the chemistry department. Take it for research in biofuels, right? They take it, in this case, and what we're talking about, take it for research in oil and development and natural gas research. We're reallocating that money towards something else, right? And they're saying, and the topicality is about how, so that's the most real world, and that's the best for education, right? Because as like, in the policy debate, we want to learn what real policymakers do. That's the best for education, and what's best for education is our definition because it's specific, and that's how policymakers act. And they talk about how clubs aren't schools, right? But once again, like we're picking a specific area, and that's because that's real world. It's the best for education. So all of their standards, we meet all their standards, and they talk about ground loss. But once again, there's no ground is lost, right? They could have made counterpoints talking about how funding this area of the school is better than debate, right? They could have made arguments, they could have made multiple arguments talking about it, but they didn't, right? Just because they did it doesn't mean their ground was lost. Okay, so going on to, they completely dropped the reverse voting issue. That's our first voting issue, so they dropped the RVI. It's a time skew. I wasted 1 minute of my last speech already. Don't let them get away with that. It's a voting issue for time skew and for fairness. They whole conceded that, so extend that argument. My partner made it in his speech. Okay, going on to the spec argument. So they make the argument talking about how we don't have solvency because it affects a small amount of people, right? We're not talking about, you don't necessarily have to increase the amount of people to achieve our solvency, right? When we talk about things like the UDL, we're talking about our debaters currently in the status quo who want to do this, right? It's not like we need more debaters to do this. We already have this in the status quo. What we need is funding, right? That's what we need. We don't necessarily need more people to achieve the benefits that we're talking about in terms of helping the UDL and helping create social justice movements through these communities, right? We don't necessarily need numbers to achieve that. That's why we completely do access our solvency from the first advantage and the second advantage. And going on to the argument, they say it's bad. Because it's bad for education. We didn't fulfill our burden. Well, we did, right? We met all of our stock issues. We specifically laid them out for the government team. They say it's not debatable. It's a loss of education. One thing, it's the best for education because you can talk about what's really good or not in terms of like what benefit debate really has or not. They could have challenged. They didn't make any solvency challenges, right? They didn't challenge the fact that maybe debate isn't the best thing to increase communication comprehension. Maybe it's not the best thing. They never made any solvency challenges, right? They just merely took the easy way out and tried to do a six-spec argument. And we don't want you to let them get away with that, Judge. We believe that they're not doing enough work for you on this flow, and therefore there's no reason to vote for them on that. And they didn't answer our argument. We talked about, look, if we were too vague, they would have been. If we said, oh, let's just fund colleges and schools, they would have ran a vagueness argument against us, right? Instead, they're running an overspecification argument against us. Right? It's the same thing. So like, it's one thing. It's a time skew. It's killing my time. They would have ran both arguments either way against us. Okay, so on to the DSAT. One thing, it's a little link of omission, right? They're trying to get away with this thing. They're saying, oh, we didn't talk about FAFSA, right? I also didn't talk about ending world hunger, right? That doesn't mean like that's not my job. As my plan is to create one specific plan, right? It's not to end all problems that colleges and universities face. That's not the job of the affirmative. The job of the affirmative is to lay out a case that's debatable, and we have done that in this round, right? So there's no link to their DSAT, and because there's no link, and they don't activate their impacts. In fact, we turn their impacts, which they completely ignore, right? It's the education bubble burst, right? When you have more kids that go to college, when you have more kids that go to college, they get a degree. There's too many bachelor's degrees, right? And the degree doesn't mean anything at the end, right? All it ends up being is a piece of paper that you hang on your wall, but it doesn't really people don't really think that you're certified with any skills, and that's fundamentally bad because it causes the education bubble to burst. People end up losing jobs. People with bachelors end up working as taxi drivers and PE teachers.
They can't pay back their loans.
And they can't pay back their loans, and that's bad for the economy. Okay, so going to our advantages, right? This is how you're going to vote on this round, right? Our advantages have been cold conceded throughout the debate, right? The only arguments that they cross the line is the small population, right? But our advantages don't necessarily need a large population. They just need funding, right? In order to have communication comprehension, right? In order to have this idea of like I said earlier, like with helping urban debate leagues form and helping debaters give. I think about the debate community, right? It's a community that gives back to its community, right? All of the judges here are former debaters at one point or another. But what this community does is this community gives back to the local community. That's what the UDL does. You don't need to have a large population to do that. And so we do access our advantage when we talk about these things like helping these kids graduate at a higher level. When we talk about these kids getting higher ACT and English scores, right? We do achieve these things even though it's not a large population. So going on to our second advantage, which has also been cold conceded, right? They make this argument about this churn, right? That they're flipping back and forth, right? They're saying that oil companies we should have oil. That the United States is going to be the biggest oil company. At the same time, they're saying, oh, we need these companies to turn away oil research, right? We're saying that currently in the status quo, the oil research is funded by universities, and we think that's bad for the environment because it takes away alternative energy. So impact calculus, we're the only ones with the real world impact. We show you the impact that debate has. All of you know the impact that debate has in the real world, and that is why you should vote affirmative. it.